Hey guys, in today's video, I'm going to indulge myself and do some miniatures that I've been wanting to paint off of my backlog for a very long time. I am obviously a big fan of 3D printing and 3D printing companies. I sign up to a bunch of them every month to receive their kind of files. One of the longest ones that I have is the Warp Miniatures one. I think their miniatures are awesome. They're very Terry Pratchett. They're beautiful. And every single month, those miniatures roll into my kind of folder. And honestly, I've never really printed any of them out. I don't know why. I think it's going to be an incredible game system. I think the models are stunning. And I just haven't really gotten the chance. So when I was at Adepticon last year, I stumbled across their booth and I bought myself a bag of goodies from them. And I will show you those in a moment. And yeah, they've just been sat there and haven't taken a single one out of a kit, out of the bag, assembled one, sprayed one, or painted one. And I think it's about time I do something about that. So in today's video, I'm going to show you what I have so far, show you a little bit about their incredible kind of arty rulebook, and then pick a warband and get it painted up in today's video. And hopefully by the end of it, you'll have a little bit of a better understanding of what Arc World is, what Warp Miniatures is. It's not sponsored by them. This video is actually sponsored by Green Stuff World. I'm going to be showing you their awesome range of paints in today's video. So yeah, this is just a pure, I like this company, let me show you what it's all about kind of video. So hopefully you're excited to see it. Before I get into it, huge thank you over there. Continue to support the channel in all the myriad of ways it is possible to do so. Like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. You're all incredible. And here goes the extra mile supports over on Patreon. You guys literally keep the lights on and the cameras rolling. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much. You get a whole host of different benefits from that, and extra videos, podcast episodes, community showcases over on our private Discord server, and we do monthly giveaways for one lucky patron gets to win a Spearhead or Combat Patrol box of their choice, sent anywhere in the world at my expense. So if that's something you're interested in getting a chance of winning, link down below. Sign up any tier. Okay, without further ado, let me show you what I've got for Arc World so far, and then it'll help me pick what I want to be painting up. Okay, so these are the bits and pieces that I have for Arc World so far. Okay, so it started with me getting a Halfling warband, which is of course typical because Halflings are kind of my favorite thing ever. If a game system has a Halfling force, I'm sure as hell going to collect it. I played Hobbits all the way through my Lord of the Rings phase. My Lord of the Rings phase is not a phase. When it comes to the old world, I have a whole bunch of those units for my Dogs of War army. I will continue to add Halflings to my collection wherever possible. So of course I had to get the Halfling warband starter set. And I'm also a big fan of kind of more standard militaristic humans. So these like Imperial starter warband, I think these guys are really cool. And I think you can see what I mean when I talk about like the Terry Pratchett kind of style. So I think these guys are absolutely beautiful. So much so that I went to like the next convention they had on. I bolstered it with 2 more miniatures from it, which I think are incredible. An Imperial Sergeant and a Griffin banner bearer. So I got a boss and a nice cool banner. I like how like frightened he looks with his banner. He's obviously got a bunk on the head. He's looking kind of worried, but he is holding a standard. And then this jolly fellow, obviously he's in charge because he has the biggest mustache. He's really cool. On top of that, they were giving away these guys from one of their collections as kind of like little, if you bought anything, you got given this. I don't remember what these guys come, but the whole other warband they did, they were kind of like pixies or whatever, or pix, I don't know. Really nice. And then I have 2 of their metal guys. One is a little knight, who is, you can't see him in the baggie. Let me take him out of the baggie. This guy here, which is a beautiful little knight model. And then I was a little bit cheeky, and hopefully they don't mind me saying this. I've had very little communication with the guys who made it. I basically just said, I really like what you do. Can I pay for a model and you send me another model, which is a bit cheeky, and I'll explain why in a minute. And it's probably going to be the model that I paint in today's video because I think it's absolutely beautiful. And basically they have event only models, which you can only get at specific events. And obviously they weren't really supposed to. So I was like, can I order 2 knights? And instead of 1 knight, you just put this guy in the bag for me? And they were like, okay. Because I literally said this is one of the nicest miniatures that any company has ever produced. And it is another Halfling. Let's see if it'll focus. But look at this for a sculpt. Just look at that model. I think this is a 10 out of 10 sculpt. He is flawless. And in fact, I have made up my mind. This is the model I'm going to be painting in today's video. Originally, I was telling myself I was going to paint up one of these red coats. But no, this guy's too beautiful. I kind of almost forgot I had him on this baggie. So no, I'm going to get this guy cleaned up and painted up in today's video. And now I'm really excited to do that. So yeah. Now, before I get into it, let me just very quickly also show you their rule book, which once again is very Terry Pratchett. It's very simple. It's a small like A5 style. It almost feels like a copybook from back in your school days. There's no color to it. It's very simple, kind of drawings, little illustrations about how terrain works, how the round works, fighting. It's just beautiful. It's just a really satisfying little book. So I give them big kudos for that. Obviously, you don't have to spend a fortune on this book. It doesn't cost. It's only kind of a couple of euros to buy, and then you can have the rules. Like I said, the majority of their warbands are actually available as 3D prints, and they have, of course, started moving over to producing. They, in fact, have opened up their own store in Nottingham, so I think that was a really crazy big move. So next time I'm in, going over to visit Warhammer World or Warlord Games, I'm definitely going to stop by and have a look at the Warp Miniatures stuff. So I'm going to go away, get this miniature ready to paint, and then I'm going to paint it up in today's video, and I'm really excited about it. So yeah. So this is the Warp Miniature exclusive, and as you can see, it's absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, in the storage of him, he has gotten a little bit warped in the sword department, but that's okay. I do use a little bit of steam and hot water to straighten that out. First thing I want to do is build up his base a little bit, so I added some super glue and some cork. And these are just little cork coasters you get from IKEA. I stick the model down just so I know kind of where the footprint of his base is onto the cork. And then once that's established, I tend to go back in with clippers and a knife and kind of gouge away the kind of flat surface of the cork and make it more natural looking as a mound of dirt as opposed to just like a flat cork top. After that, I sprayed the model, and this time I'm using a Green Stuff World's black and white primer in order to get a nice smooth base coat ready for some of the wetter coats of paint that we're going to be applying first. I'm getting this model prepped. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I'm a big fan of halflings, so I always do enjoy. So blushing flesh will be the first color that I grab, and I'm going to work up his skin first and get that all blocked in. These models have been kind of described as being more Terry Pratchett than anything else. If that really screams at you, do let me know. One of the things that is obviously massively noticeable is the gigantic size of his eyes, his big kind of cartoon style eyes, which for me was kind of a nerve-wracking part of this model. Obviously, I haven't really painted a lot of eyes before. Like, I can paint a neat eye lens on a Space Marine helmet, and if I need to paint an eye, it's quite easy for me, but ones at this size are going to require kind of pupils and irises and all that kind of stuff, and obviously I was quite nervous of that. Military green was brought in for his little tunic. Now, he has the kind of top, you know, that kind of collar. I never remember what those collars are called. Yeah, lots of medieval, like peasantry and stuff, carry them or wear them. But originally I decided I was going to do that in like a bony white color, and I really just didn't like it. It was ruining the kind of the flow of the model. It was just too much of this. I really like how the green was turning out. So later on in the video, you will see that bit around his neck suddenly become the same green color as his tunic. And I think that I think was a better choice. We did some mustard yellow on his pants. Then a nice rich dark brown to block in his belt. Models like this are truly a joy to paint because there isn't that much to them. I am, and will never say otherwise, a colossal fan of Games Workshop and Warhammer miniatures, but they definitely do have a lot of details, which for the most part I enjoy. I enjoy looking at the miniature when it's fully painted, seeing all those details done. But the process of actually painting all those details is usually less fun. Whereas a simpler model like this, I find I enjoy the process of painting it a hell of a lot more. Obviously, I'm blocking in his hair now, which obviously consists of a nice mop of hair on his head and his hairy little feet. Dark bronze was used to base coat in the handle, the hilt and crossguard of his sword. His kind of beat up old chipped sword, God only knows where he got it. Maybe he pulled it out of a stone or out of the altar of a temple. You never know. That little temple reference may be an indication of what this model ends up looking like at the end. A little bit of anthrax silver to block in the blade. I did go back over the bronze with Eldorado gold a little bit. Between now and the next clip, you'll see it turning more kind of goldish. The bronze, which is a little bit too dark, so I added a quick highlight. I end up highlighting it with the Eldorado gold again after the shade, but I'll get to that when I do. Pecten flesh was then brought in and shaded all of the skin, so his face, hands, feet. I love this pecten flesh. It's what I've been doing for all of my Trench Crusade when I've been painting with the Greens of World paints, the Blushing Flesh, the Pectum Flesh, back to Blushing Flesh, and then Elf Flesh, and I just find the skin tone looks really, really nice. Something I've carried across multiple projects. And then Andalusian Earth is like a brownish wash. And obviously this went over everything else. Every other part of the model, bar the skin, got a nice coat of this shade. And you'll see when it's all dry now, it looks really kind of neat and tidy, and it's really ready to be layered up, which is my favorite part about painting a miniature. Once I've gotten all the base coats on and the model is shaded down and I get to start layering, that's when I get excited. But before we do that, we're going to get some textured ground. I think this is volcanic earth. And I'm going to apply this onto his base, help blend his already kind of designed base that's under his feet in with the textured base that I've given him. Obviously apply a nice coat of this and then wait for it to fully dry before we move on and do any other steps. The reason that I usually do my basing in the middle, I know you watch a lot of other creators and their videos and they always base at the very end, but I don't want to hit his toes and his feet and everything with everything else. So like I'm doing a flaming orange dry brush now and I'm hitting that across all the soil. Of course this is going over his little toes and the heels of his feet and stuff, or Space Marine boots or you know, stuff like that. And that for the most part can look awesome. Adding a little bit of weathering to their boots, it makes a lot of sense. But for certain more kind of cartoonish looking models like this, I prefer to have it kind of as neat and tidy as possible. So I got all the dry brushing out of the way, I rimmed the base black, and then I started the whole process of layering the model, knowing that it could tidy up his toes and his feet and stuff like that as I went. Black Stallion used to block in the rim of his base. I know these bases are kind of common amongst a bunch of other game systems. I think things like War Machine and Hordes use these same like beveled sided bases. I don't exactly know what it's called. This is the first time I've ever painted one, ever blocked in one with black right now. And they are quite nice bases. Something I think would benefit from like Lord of the Rings miniatures, might look really good on those. So now it's in the layering process. We're going to start once again with the skin, and we're going to go back to that blushing flesh like we talked about and relayer the skin, because the pectum skin shade has knocked it down so much, but added nice detail into all the recesses. It means the blushing flesh can come back in and add as a mid-tone and still start breaking up all those different details between his like toes and knuckles and the palms of his hand and what he's holding the sword with, all that kind of bits and pieces. It works with that. And then we jump up with elven flesh, sorry, and use that as the final highlight, just a few touches here and there, and just to make the skin pop a little bit more. That's all I have to do, and then that leaves me with a skin tone that I'm really, really happy with. Obviously trying to kind of break apart the face. It's very kind of smooth cheeked, so we've got to kind of define his jaw a little bit with the paint, but that's okay. From here we got to rocket green. I don't know why it's called rocket green. What rockets are green? I don't know. And I started layering up the cloth. Now the Greens of World paints aren't broken down into like triads, so you have to kind of try and figure out what, you know, you want your base coat, your mid-tone, and your highlight to be when you're painting, which can take a little bit of trial and error. But I think I hit the nail on the head when it came to these greens. I was a little bit nervous about it when I was holding all three pots up together. I was like, is this the right set of colors for everything? Like when I went straight up to this gangrene color. Horrible name for a paint. But the paints are really like translucent. You're almost kind of half glazing with them each time, which is really nice. And which means some of the previous colors I was going to bleed through and help it be kind of really natural looking. So when you're applying the paint at first, it seems a little bit too bright and too vibrant, like it's going to stand out too much. And once it dries, like I said, it goes super matte and dulls down a little bit. And you're left with this really, really nice color. And this is the main kind of turning point where I was like, I don't really like the top part of his uniform or whatever. I need to change it. So I layered up his sleeves. And then after that, I was like, I'm not going to layer up the top part. I'm going to go back to the military green again and block in that, shade it down and layer it up just like all the other green parts of the model. And then once I did that, that's when I saw it. That's when I noticed that I'd accidentally painted this guy like somebody else. And if anybody at this point in the video can tell me what this guy looks like, pause the video and put it in the comments. I won't give it away now. In a minute or two, it'll become more apparent because I decided to add an Easter egg to this model to help people know in the future. The foxhide brown is a really nice color brown for layering up the leather as well. Like I said, because it's translucent, some of that dark, rich brown is showing through. So we're just adding this as a nice kind of textured highlight through the belt. Desert camo is the mid-tone that I'm going to be using for the hair. Individual strands, which are obviously nice and big because of the kind of cartoonish style, are super easy to highlight and layer, which I love. It makes, like I said, that process really enjoyable. So I went ahead and did that. And obviously I wanted to push it a little bit more towards that kind of sandy blonde color. So I do push it just a little bit further with some kind of bonish color. Temple ochre is the color. And like I said, I just took my time. I just did the same job as the previous one, just less, a few lines. And this gave me the really nice tone. Now, his eyes will become suddenly painted soon. I didn't want to go through the process. I did record how I painted his eyes, but it was so much back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and trial and error that I wouldn't feel comfortable being like, this is how you paint eyes. Maybe after I paint a bunch more of these warp miniatures, I will feel more comfortable being like, follow these steps to get great eyes. I don't think I have the credentials yet to be able to say that in a video. Eldorado Gold is now brought back in and re-highlighting up those things that we kind of darkened down with the Andalusian Earth Shade. And the Anthrax Silver is brought back in just to kind of brighten up the blade. Now we left all the nicks and the center bit nice and dark. Even though the nicks I suppose should be a little bit brighter, but don't worry about that. Some gloss varnish for the eyes and the gemstone in the middle of his sword. He does look slightly terrified with the eyes. The eyes do have kind of, pale off-white around the outside. He has kind of a blue iris and a black dot in the middle. And like I said, it was a bit back and forth. So this is the point where I decided that the kind of flat outside part of his hand here is the perfect place to put an Easter egg for this miniature. I started with yellow, but it wasn't very clear. So then I decided to black line the image, so that hopefully if people see this model and pick it up and have a look, they will see the Triforce on his hand. And this little halfling Link will become the hero of the story because he's just so awesome. Some tall shrubs were then brought in from Green Stuff World. I used some kind of pink, orange, and some greens to put little kind of shrubs and bushes around him. I super glued them into place, and then I just used the clippers to cut them down. They felt like they were, obviously halflings aren't very tall, so I don't want him like obscured. So then I just trimmed them down to the height and size that I want. I added some of the tree moss to other parts of his base. I ended up messing up the base rim, so I re-blacked that in with the Stallion Black. And that left me with my finished, first ever painted warp miniature model. And I'm so happy with the result. I have a little link. I don't think this guy has rules, but I will figure out how to play him in the game as part of my little halfling warband. And here's some still images of him. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see more videos on some warp miniatures models in the future, please don't hesitate to let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. I'll see you in the next one.